Welcome to Coffee and Conversation. My name is Honorine, and today I'm with Alexandria Rawls, who is doing a master in public interest media and communication. Welcome, Alexandria. Can you introduce yourself? Can you tell me more about who you are?
Yeah. So my name, as you mentioned, is Alexandria Rawls. I often go by Allie. I was born and raised in Citrus County, Florida. I went to the University of South Florida for my undergraduate in communication with a concentration in public advocacy. And then a few years later, went back to school at FSU to obtain my public interest media and communication with a concentration in social psychology and women's studies. So I'm pretty excited about that. The reason why I chose FSU is actually my parents met at FSU. And so they had three daughters, and not one of their daughters ever went to FSU. And that's one of the things that attracted me there, as well as the program and what they had to offer regard to my growth, not only as an individual, but as an employee at my current company.
So when you say current company, you have your own company?
Oh, I work as a real estate analyst for the America's Income at CBRE, which is a commercial real estate company. It's based in different locations. So although I reside in Florida, I'm currently out in California working.
Okay, so how do you manage being, I suppose you're a full-time employee at this company. So how do you manage being a full-time student and a full-time employee?
Yeah, it gets difficult at times, but if you have an employer that works with you, it can definitely be an attainable goal. So basically, I was at this company for about 2 years prior, and I decided that I would like to go back to go get my master's. And instead of an employee being like, oh, this isn't what we see fit at this moment in time, they worked with me. And by working with me, we adjusted my schedule to not only have the classes that happen during the day, but also be able to work either before classes start or after classes start. So usually a day for me looks like 12 hours. So starting work at 6 a.m., having classes in between, and then finishing up work around 6 p.m.
Wow, what a day. Um, so were you working like remote or did you were able to do both because of COVID?
It was, but COVID was definitely a benefactor in regard to me going back to school. So then, since FSU is in Florida and then jobs currently in California, we are remote. So I was able to go to class online as well as be able to work from California because, like, for some instances, there's documents that may need notaries. So I'm a California notary. So I'll have to go and sign those documents from time to time. So it definitely worked out because of COVID for me to be able to obtain that master's from FSU while also working full time.
Wow, that's perfect. And when did you start your master?
I started in fall 2021.
Okay, so what is your since FSU is planning on reopening its doors in the fall, do you have a plan for like face-to-face classes with your full-time job?
Oh yeah. So like my initial goal was to actually finish the master's in 1 year. So what was happening was fall, I took 12 credits on top of being a full-time employee. Then I also took 12 credits this spring. And then for the summer, I was anticipating taking 12 more credits, but as we know, there's limited classes during the summer. So since that's the case, I pushed it back out to fall. But that also means that now, in regards specifically for public interest media communication, there's an option to either do the courses, where it's 3 courses that you would take in place, or excuse me, I think 6 courses in place of the creative or the thesis. So
Okay.
then now, since I do have that time, I'll be able to plan during the summer and then also execute the creative project in the fall. So that's what I'll be doing instead. So I'll have the 2 classes in the summer plus the planning period, and then also the final for the creative project in the fall. And then that should be good in regard to classes. So I wouldn't actually ever be face to face.
Wow, you're such an inspiration. Like you're such a go-getter. I feel so inspired. So what is your routine? Like how do you manage everything? Like 12 credits is a lot.
Yeah, it's been different. And it amazes me because if you asked me like 2 years ago when I had gone back to grad school, I would have been like, no, I'm done with education. It's not that I didn't want to go. It's just like it life gets a hold of you. And so then I've, I've done so much since then. And I don't know if I feel like the main reason why that what triggered me to go back to grad school was the, recent injustices and the shooting of an unarmed Black man. It kind of just made me realize that I need to pursue more education so I would be able to connect with people on a deeper and personal level in regard to how we can change our society for the better. Because I feel like a lot of it is stemming from ignorance. Like some people just don't understand how different cultures interact, or yeah, it's very hard. And I feel like the best way for us to go about it is actually to go through children so that they understand. Because I remember going to school and then still having to like explain to people why we do certain things or why certain things happen. And yes, this still exists. Just because it's 2021 or at that time like 2013 doesn't mean that it doesn't happen anymore. So I think that's a big thing as well that triggered me to go back to school. And then on top of that, uh, I went back to school. I got my notary. I also qualified for the state exams for real estate in California and Florida. So because of the lockdown, they were pushing back exam dates. So I still have to take those. But during that time, I took the classes to be able to apply to become a real estate agent. But in regard to balancing a day to day and also keeping my sanity, it's interesting. So a normal day would look like I wake up around 5:45, 6 a.m. and go in, log into work for a little bit, and then start classes. So even though the class starts at 9:45 in Florida, it's actually 6:45 a.m. my time. So I deal with a lot of like early morning classes, and then go back to work and finish up work from that point in time. But I still take the time to go and exercise as well. So there's a 45-minute class. It just does a little bit of a workout. And then after that, I come back and start on my homework. And then from about 8 to midnight working on homework. And then once again, start the routine over. So it's a lot. I try to do as much as I can during the weekend. Some assignments are due during the week. I've seen a difference between the fall and the spring semester. In the fall semester, it was kind of like 3 projects and then like the final exam type of situation. Mm-hmm. I didn't see a lot of projects due on a weekly or bi-weekly basis versus spring. It's more assignment based. So there's something due like Tuesday and Thursday for my classes. And I'm just like, okay, it's different because I wasn't expecting to do an assignment for each class every week versus 3 assignments in 3 months.
Yeah. Well, see, I think it's really good that you still take time for yourself, because what I'm thinking is, oh my God, she's gonna do a burnout at some point. Like this is too much. But it's good you keep working out, and you take time for yourself to be able to stay alive. Can you tell me more about your research now? Because that's the main reason why I wanted to do this interview with you. Is I met Alexandria during the Fellows Forum, and she talked about dating during COVID, and I found it very interesting, and I thought more people need to know about this research. So tell me more about, and maybe it's not actually your main project. So tell me about your project.
Yeah, definitely. So online dating has always been like, I've been fascinated by it, how it's able to connect multiple people and just from any part of the world and be able to meet new people, understand where they're coming from, and then potentially find a life partner. So some of those things that I've learned through that research, which is, for instance, researching about Bumble, which is a online dating application where you have someone that you're interested in, you swipe right on, and then once you swipe right, you can match. But then the conversation only starts within the 24 hours if the female counterpart responds to the person that they matched with. And if they don't respond, then the match essentially disappears. There's also premium features within the application. So if someone wanted to upgrade, meaning that they extend out the time to not just 24 hours, but 48 hours, there's certain things like that that can also happen as well. So the male counterpart is not able to respond to the female counterpart until the female counterpart initiates that conversation. Bumble
Okay.
also has like, oh, go ahead.
So I'm not familiar at all with online dating. I guess I got lucky enough to meet my fiance with like in class. So I never went through that. But are you like all the applications are like this, or is it a specific one that you are studying?
So specifically for Bumble, that is that way. For Tinder, it's any person can respond back as soon as you match. So if you do not match that person, you're not able to contact that person. There's so that kind of not necessarily, it kind of protects the user if that's not someone who they're wanting to speak with, but that doesn't mean that they're not able to kind of pinpoint their location, because in order to use these applications, you have to state your location. So it uses that GPS coordinates to find out exactly where you are, but it won't tell
Exactly.
you the city, or like, so it could be like 3 miles this way, this way, this way, or this way. You don't know for certain, but you know the person is a certain amount of miles away from you. So
Oh,
yeah, it's a
scary.
little concerning.
And that's allowed?
Yeah, you, as soon as you sign up for it, you say like, "Hey," it prompts you like, "We're going to use your location in order for you to use this app. Are you okay with that?" And then people say yes, and that's what happens. But I think when using the location as well, I don't know if it was a previous feature back like years prior where you can hide the location, or if this is a feature now where you can pay to have your location hidden. I think that also may be something as well. I think it might be location and age. Um, but yeah, I basically dated, like started dating through online dating apps. And so that's how I started understanding and like figuring out what's going on. And then
Yeah.
it brought up the fascination, especially because of COVID. It had me questioning, like, because I actually found my partner through Bumble, but like maybe a month before COVID became a thing.
Hmm.
So I was just trying to figure out, like, would we actually have been a partner? Like, would we have been in a relationship if like COVID had happened and, we still were dating at that point? I think a big thing as well with online dating that I also wanted to do was to make it safer.
Yeah.
I've seen videos. I've also seen like documentaries in regard to people who have met someone through online dating,
Hmm.
and then there could have been sexual assault, rape, murder. I mean, these things unfortunately happen whether it's online or offline. But I still want to make sure that online is also as safe as it can possibly be. So initially, back in the fall, what I wanted to do was keep people accountable. In order to keep people accountable, I feel like we need to have certain information. So when people register for online dating applications, they would need to provide their driver's license or some sort of identification, because I've seen like a lot of people, especially on social media, where they'll talk about people or they'll make, mean and unnecessary comments because they're hiding behind a smoke screen. You don't know who it is. So they can say whatever they want. But if you're able to have that identification that this is a real person, this is their, like, you wouldn't share the address with the user, of course, but that they're held accountable. Like, oh, okay, this person said something, like, verbally assaulted me, they will be held accountable. So that's kind of what I really wanted to do, was make sure the safety of those users was also a concern.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I did see that Garbo was partnering with Tinder in regard to performing background checks. And I go, well, there was my idea. So it is interesting. And I'm glad that they're actually doing that, because you don't know who you interact with online. And that's true. Anybody could lie and say that they're so and so when actuality they're not at all, which is where the term catfish comes in, where someone's using a picture that is not necessarily them. That happens often on online dating apps. And unfortunately, sometimes they just can't catch them. uh, they've been trying to implement things with Bumble. They do like a facial recognition. So once you set it up, they'll have you have a picture where you're actually real time right then and there. so they can match it with the pictures that you uploaded. And if it doesn't match up there, it'll be like, well, we can't upload it. And then that's where you get the little blue check that comes in to make sure like, hey, we verified that this user matches the photos that have been uploaded. And then lastly about that too is all you need is an email address and a phone number. So if someone has been blocked from Bumble, Tinder, Grindr, all these different dating apps, all they need to do is either register to a different dating app or just get another email address because they're unlimited on every platform, Gmail, Outlook, AOL.com, and just that maybe they have a burner phone or something like that, and they can just use it to make another account. So then once again, they can continuously repeat whatever they have been previously doing, which is something I also don't want for that to happen as well.
So your research is looking into like, because you said you're in the Silicon Valley, now I'm thinking like, is your research like the ideal app that you want to create one day? Or is it more looking into the wrongs of, or the dangers of online dating? And I guess also the good thing about online dating.
Yeah, so like from this idea was spawned from my diffusion of innovation class that I took in the fall. With Dr. Rundorf Muhammad, fantastic. And so that's where I kind of got this idea of wanting to do my own dating application and getting that bio data and then trying to figure out what would appeal to potential users. But I think I'm more so, since I recently spoke with my advisor and we talked about, I was telling him like, oh yeah, this, and this. He goes, well, you're not describing to me a creative project. You're describing to me like a thesis where you're doing the research, you're getting the background information. And I go, oh, okay, well, I wanted to do a creative project. So it was great to get that clarification. So my creative project is still going to deal with dating, but it's going to be more so with interracial dating. So initially I had spoken about, oh, well, I've seen that there's not just difficulties with interracial dating, like with the different cultures and the backgrounds, but more so with the family. So like the traditional values, whether or not they're accepting of a quote unquote outsider into their community. And I said I wanted to do something like that. Like hopefully in the future, I would be able to do something like along the concept of how like Catfish is set up, where someone writes into a show and they basically say like, oh, we're having difficulties breaking it to our parents that we want to get married or be together. We go and meet the potential couple who wants to get married. And then we all go together to the parents' house and kind of just mediate the situation. So that's kind of like a future thing for me. But specifically for my creative project, it's going to be focused on interracial dating, and I'm still half and half about whether or not I want it to be reflexive, because you're diving in, it's deeper, it's personal information, and it's not just only your information, but your partner's information as well. So that's currently kind of like what I want to do for my creative project. Obviously, it's still in the works because I need to get that out and ready to go before the summer. But that's kind of what I want to do, is finding a way to document this experience and finding a way to actually have a conversation with the other party's parents, and then also with the other party as well, because you're not able to move forward until certain things are resolved.
That's very true. And so for this research, would it be focused on online dating, or it can be a couple that met like at the supermarket?
Yeah, definitely. That is a good question. If that's something that I want, because like I said before, I have such a fascination. So if two with one, so if they met through online dating, and then I would have to see who's available, and then see how they met, and see if I do have the time to be able to hear it from one side of the story to another side of the story. So like hearing someone who's online dating, and to be honest, some people may not have any difficulties with interracial dating through like online dating applications. Their parents could be completely fine with it. There's not really any issues, versus not only interracial dating, but in my particular instance, interfaith as well, because he's of Sikh religion. And, it's, the questions rise up from the parents, for instance, of if you're going to have children in the future, how are you going to raise a child? And it's just, it's like things that are not happening at this time. And as a couple, those are your own decisions, not an external party's decisions. But like I had mentioned to my partner before, that the child will be raised in both religions. Like it, to me, it's all about you are a mixture of your parents. So if this is the religion that you observe, by all means, the child will also learn that religion as well as my own religion. So I have no issues with that. But I guess since it's a traditional background that he's coming from, some people may not be able to understand the melding and mixture of different cultures.
That's fascinating. I love it. And for my last question, how do you picture yourself in 5 years?
Wow. I could barely picture myself in 2 years. So 5 years is going to be very difficult. 5 years from now,
Or your ideal self? How would who would you like? Who would you like to be in 5 years?
So in 5 years, I'm trying to figure out what path I would have taken by that point. Because on one hand, I'm just like, oh, I would love to start my own company and be able to create that online dating application. So using my degree for better use, not just public interest, media communication, but times 10. So not only incorporating safety, also understanding the user and figuring out what we can do to make it better for them. So that's something that I have goals and aspirations for, is hopefully one day create an app and make the best of the situation that I possibly can. Because there's still people who I know personally who are just like, oh, I don't do online dating because it's scary, or don't you remember this particular person, i.e. Craigslist killer or something along those lines. I'm just like, that is true, but there are certain ways to go about it for your own safety, meeting in public places. And you unfortunately you just can't plan for everything. And I think that's one thing that I also have to accept as well, that there'll always be setbacks no matter how hard I want to stop something, unfortunately. So I had to figure out trying to understand that part. Another part is I love animation. So that I'm hoping like in the future, not only just like I mentioned before earlier in our conversation about, I think that we need to reach the children first to kind of prevent this ignorance from happening later on in life. And so in order to do that, I feel like being able to provide those type of those shows and educational things for children, so that it becomes ingrained, and it's such at an early stage in mind. They're like, oh, okay, well, this is what we should do, this is what we shouldn't do, and these are the reasons why. So I would hope to have like some sort of educational / like animated video out there. That would be super awesome, kind of just like going back through history, and then having like the children travel through time and kind of understand what happened at this point. Because the whole saying, if you don't know history, you're condemned to repeat it, but kind of just understand from those actions and what we could have done to be better versions of ourselves, instead of kind of just trying to hide it, just open it up and have that conversation about it.
Well, this is fascinating again. And what about your future in real estate?
So that also as well. So right now I currently work for CBRE, and one of our clients is Google. So what we do is we manage all of Google's real estate portfolio. So that's not just like the United States, Canada, it's LATAM regions, it's Europe, it's APAC, it's everything. So they own like multiple locations, pay over $1 billion in rent. And so for my future in real estate, like I said before, I'm hoping to get that real estate license not only in California, but also in Florida within this year by taking that test. And kind of seeing where I'm going through that. For some reason, I'm very eclectic with what I do. There's a lot of stuff that I want to accomplish, but like we mentioned before about burnout, is understanding your limitations and what needs to happen at certain points in time. Like it doesn't all need to happen at once. And I've learned that through going back to school. Like not everything has to happen right now. You still have time, even though time is never guaranteed, but enjoy what you're doing, taking that time to learn it. And also, because I've learned so much in grad school, like it's changed my way of thinking, the research, the papers, it's so much information that I would have never gotten if I hadn't gone back to school. So that's something that I deeply appreciate for FSU giving me that opportunity to just be able to go back into the classroom, maybe not in person, but virtually, and be able to expand my career with that. So I'm hoping with real estate, it kind of, with the agent part of the aspect, like more so of, like, that's the thing. There's just so much I want to do. So I just like, yeah, I'll be a real estate agent too. I'll be a real estate agent. I'll have my own application. And although these ideas sound far-fetched, it's just more so of how I'm going to have them fit all into my lifetime. And so I do want to still pursue real estate, and then also be able to not only just commercial real estate, but also maybe residential as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this interview. I feel so inspired. I want to tackle my, endless to-do list. Thank you for taking the time in your really busy schedule. And I'm looking forward to see what you'll do in the future.
Yeah, keep me posted. I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.